Well, United Auto Workers launching a historic strike against the big three automakers. Our senior correspondent John Huddy has the story.
I'm standing outside the Ford assembly plant in Wayne, Michigan. This is where they put together the Ford Bronco and Ford Ranger models, and where 3,300 workers on the paint and assembly line walked off the job at midnight Friday, along with several thousand more at a GM plant in Missouri, and also a Stellantis plant in Toledo, Ohio. In total, 13,000 UAW workers have walked off the job. This is a fight that's being described as a battle between America's blue class workers and these billionaire companies, the big three, Ford, GM, Stellantis. Friday night at a rally in downtown Detroit, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer voiced her support for the UAW and those on strike, along with Senator Bernie Sanders, a very pro-union guy, as we know, who called on the CEOs of the big three automakers to put aside their quote-unquote greed and get these people a fair wage.
Weekly wages for the average American worker are lower today than they were 50 years ago.
He noted that Ford CEO Jim Farley made $21 million in pay last year. Mary Barra, CEO of GM, was paid $29 million, and Carlos Tavares of Stellantis, $24 million. Now, Ford announced it was temporarily laying off 600 workers at its Wayne assembly plant here amid the ongoing strike, and GM said Friday it expects to idle operations at its Fairfax plant in Kansas City, Kansas, due to the ramifications of the strike, which is expected, by the way, according to some of the early estimates, to cost at least $5 billion over 10 days if it indeed lasts that long, and result in higher prices on Ford, GM, and Stellantis models. Now, what does the UAW want? It wants a 36% pay hike over 4 years, a shorter work week, better benefits, pension, and more job security guarantees. Stellantis is now offering a 19.5% pay increase. Ford has offered 20%, GM 18%. UAW workers I've been talking to also say they're concerned about the potential impact of government-mandated EV, electric vehicle investment on the industry and the potential for job layoffs.
Well, you're not going to need the engines, quite a few things you won't need with the EVs. So you're going to lose a lot of work, a lot of people once you go fully get rid of the gas-powered vehicles. It's going to cost some jobs. I think they're trying to save it. I know their workers won't be making as much, so we want to make sure they keep that up.
I believe we will always have a job with gas vehicles. I hope, at least.
President Biden, meantime, said he has deployed Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su and also White House Senior Advisor Gene Sperling to Detroit to help with the ongoing negotiations set to resume this weekend going into next week. Outside the Ford assembly plant in Wayne, Michigan, John Huddy, Newsmax.
All right, John. Well, for more on this, we're joined by columnist from the Car Coach, Lauren Fix. Plus, we have Professor of Business at Wayne State University, Marek Masters. So, Professor, let's start with you. This is kind of interesting because for now it's limited to 3 plants, this strike. And yeah, it's about pay and pensions and all that other stuff, but really it's about their survival, right? Electric vehicles require a lot less workers to assemble, and the batteries can be made in China. President Biden's EPA is basically forcing car companies to phase out gas engines and make everyone buy EVs that the public doesn't want. So where do you see this going here?
It is a struggle for what Shawn Fain calls fair and just transition to electrification. But there comes a point in time when you have to put the ideal aside and get down to reality, what you can practically do. I think the companies are willing to give the workers large pay increases. And also they're willing to deal with some of the staffing issues that they've addressed, like tiers in progression to the highest wage level. And plus, I also think they're willing to make commitments to ensure that there are jobs in the industry for the workers and that there's a transition for those who are displaced. Once they start focusing on these things and put aside, what they'd like to have, the auto companies are not going to go back to where they were in 2007, right before bankruptcy. They're not going to give defined benefit pension plans. They're not going to give retiree health care. They're not going to give back the jobs bank. As long as the union thinks that that's something that's in the cards, then they're going to be out on strike.
So, Lauren, you know, EVs are expensive. They're also very heavily subsidized by the government. So far, they still don't have the range, and there aren't enough charging stations, especially in rural areas. Is it even possible that half the vehicles in this country are going to be electric within 7 years, which is what the Biden administration and progressives are requiring, basically, through the EPA and this new Green Deal nonsense?
No, we're not going to see 50% electric vehicles, although this is what the administration wants, the average price being $66,000. And with this strike in place and the increased pay that they're demanding, and I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but there's a give and take. That means the price of cars are going to get more expensive. We don't know how much because it depends what the final negotiation is. But your other guest is correct. They'll give in on some things, but they're not going to give in on giving health care back to union workers. They're not going to give in on letting them getting paid for 40 hours and only working 32 hours. Any CEO that agrees to that will be probably let go. What you're probably going to see is some sort of happy medium. I don't believe this is going to get settled quickly, and I don't believe we're going to go all electric. We just had a bill pass the House just on Friday that will allow customers or drivers to make their own decisions rather than being forced to buying all electric, and that starts in California. So we're going to see some changes. We just need this bill to pass the Senate.
So, Professor, what kind of impact would this strike have on businesses, not just, the manufacturers there, but other businesses, and on the economy as a whole?
Well, if it's amped up to where it has a significant impact on the company-wide, and they are forced to shut down many of their plants, it will affect tens of thousands of jobs, not just those strikers who are immediately involved, which could be up to 146,000 workers. And generally, the downstream effect of a strike is 2 to 1. So for every dollar that a worker isn't spending, there's a $2 loss in the economy. And the companies are estimated to lose, if there's a company-wide strike, about $500 million a week. So it will compound seriously, and that'll make it hard for to get to an agreement because they got to recoup their losses. Both sides are going to lose. The workers are losing pay now, the $13,000. They've laid off a couple workers in one facility already that'll have to go on unemployment compensation. And I might just add one thing that your previous guest mentioned that I think is real important to realize. The companies are put in a rock and a hard place. They're pushed very hard to go to electrification. They now produce cars as much to meet government mandates as they do customer preferences. And I think that this is a real serious issue that needs to be resolved by policymaking because the workers are saying, where's our place at the table in this transition? We don't have one. So you're just telling us that you're going to get rid of our jobs and they're going to lose their profit sharing payments because the EVs are not profitable. Ford lost $60,000 on each EV they sold in the first half of this year.
That's crazy. And Lauren, quickly, the union, they got to be careful to not price themselves out of the market because, future plants could be built in right-to-work states or foreign countries with a lot less labor costs or even by artificial intelligence, right?
Right. You're starting to see a lot of battery plants built in Nevada, and those are non-union states. I know that there's battery plants being built in Alabama and Georgia and in Kentucky. Even Ford is building a battery plant down in the southern states. So they're looking at non-union situations so they don't get caught up in this. Because remember, for every 10 days that we're still fighting this fight, you're losing $5.6 billion in the economy. And that's a lot. And Professor Masters is correct. I mean, he's saying things that people don't realize. It's great that these people want to get paid. They want a living wage. That's not the problem. There's a point of them asking too much and the car manufacturers being unable to deliver because they're going to take a loss. And when we go to buy new cars, everyone's going to pay more, and that's going to hurt the economy as well.
Well, this is going to have a lot of political ramifications, too, if this goes on longer. So, Lauren Fix, Marek Masters, thank you so much. Appreciate it.